Welcome to Easy Learning Tree Kids, where learning is fun. Today, let's dive into the exciting story of the Paddington Bear and the Great Train Adventure. It was a bright and cheerful morning at 32 Windsor Gardens, and Paddington Bear was feeling particularly adventurous. He had just finished his breakfast, marmalade on toast, of course, when Mr. Brown walked into the kitchen holding a newspaper. "Paddington, would you like to join me on a special trip today?" Mr. Brown asked with a smile. "We're going on a train ride through the countryside." Paddington's eyes lit up. "A train ride? Oh, Mr. Brown, I've never been on a proper train adventure before." Mrs. Brown packed a small suitcase with sandwiches, biscuits, and a big jar of marmalade, just in case Paddington got peckish. With his hat neatly perched on his head and his blue coat buttoned up, Paddington took Mr. Brown's hand, and they set off to the station. Paddington and Mr. Brown arrived at the bustling train station. There were people rushing to and fro, whistles blowing, and the wonderful chug-chug of steam engines. Paddington was in awe. "This is even more exciting than I imagined," he said, clutching his suitcase tightly. "Just remember to stay close," Mr. Brown reminded him as they made their way onto the train. They found their seats by the window, and Paddington pressed his nose against the glass, watching the platform disappear as the train pulled away. "I wonder what sorts of adventures we'll have today," he mused, spreading marmalade on a biscuit. As the train chugged through the rolling hills, a distinguished-looking man in a pinstripe suit and bowler hat walked past their compartment. He was carrying a small locked briefcase and looked around suspiciously before hurrying away. Paddington turned to Mr. Brown. "That gentleman seems to be in quite a rush," he said thoughtfully. "Do you think he's on a secret mission?" Mr. Brown chuckled. "Not everyone on a train is on an adventure, Paddington." But Paddington wasn't so sure. As he got up to fetch a cup of tea from the dining carriage, he accidentally bumped into the man, who nearly dropped his briefcase. "Oh, I'm terribly sorry," Paddington said politely, adjusting his hat. The man looked startled. "No harm done," he muttered before hurrying off again. Paddington watched him disappear down the corridor. Something about that man's behavior seemed rather unusual. Deciding to investigate, Paddington made his way through the train, carefully balancing his cup of tea. However, just as he reached the dining carriage, the train gave a sudden jolt, and splosh! The tea went flying, landing right on a waiter's crisp white uniform. "Oh dear," Paddington said, looking at the large brown stain. The waiter gasped. "My uniform! Oh, what a disaster!" Paddington quickly offered his pocket-chief. "I always carry one for emergencies," he said kindly. "And I do have some spare marmalade if that would help." The waiter, trying not to laugh, waved him along. "Just be careful, little bear." As Paddington continued his journey through the train, he noticed something unusual: an empty seat where the mysterious man had been sitting, and no sign of his briefcase. Paddington murmured. "Something fishy is going on." Just then, a worried-looking woman approached a conductor. "Excuse me," she said, "but my handbag has gone missing. It was right next to me a moment ago." Paddington's ears perked up. A missing handbag and a missing briefcase. This certainly sounded like an adventure in the making. Paddington hurried back to Mr. Brown. "I think something mysterious is happening on this train," he announced. Mr. Brown, halfway through his newspaper, raised an eyebrow. "Oh, and what makes you say that?" Before Paddington could explain, the conductor made an announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, if anyone has seen a missing handbag, please inform a staff member." Paddington's mind raced. He decided to take matters into his own paws. Putting on his most serious face, Paddington adjusted his hat and began his investigation. He peered under seats, checked behind curtains, and even asked a rather surprised cat if it had seen anything suspicious. Then, as he was passing another compartment, he saw something peculiar. The mysterious man's briefcase was sticking out from under a seat, and next to it, a lady's handbag. Paddington gasped. Could it be that the man had taken the handbag by mistake? Or was he up to something more devious? He decided to take action. Carefully, he picked up the handbag and the briefcase and hurried back to the conductor. "Excuse me, sir," he said politely, "but I believe these may belong to someone." The conductor's eyes widened. "Well done, young bear. We've been looking for these." Just then, the mysterious man appeared, looking rather flustered. I must have left that briefcase behind by mistake," he stammered. The woman who had lost her handbag arrived and gasped. "That's mine. Oh, thank you, dear bear." The conductor frowned at the man, but after checking the briefcase, he determined that everything was in order. It had all been a misunderstanding, but Paddington had saved the day. Back in their seats, Mr. Brown beamed. "Paddington, that was some fine detective work." Paddington smiled as he took a bite of his marmalade sandwich. "I do try my best, Mr. Brown, but I think I'll stick to eating marmalade rather than solving mysteries. It's far less messy." The train ride continued peacefully, and as Paddington watched the countryside roll by, he sighed contentedly. It had been quite the adventure, and he couldn't wait to tell Mrs. Bird and the Browns all about it. As the train pulled into their station, Paddington hopped off, holding onto his suitcase. He had discovered that even an ordinary train ride could turn into the most marvelous adventure of all. And of course, he made sure to save a little marmalade for the journey home. Wow, little explorers! What an adventure Paddington had on the train. Today we learned, help others. Kindness makes the world a better place. Thanks for watching Easy Learning Tree Kids. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more fun adventures. See you next time, little explorers.